to a governing body. I'm not sure why anybody else would want to be a governing body. This is not a huge money-making deal. It's a lot of work, but God bless them if they want to. I probably just said something else publicly that you guys are scooping, but and that's what's important. Level, you mentioned level playing field. We want consistency. We want a level playing field. But I think when you have competitive forces out there, they have interest. They have personal financial interest in winning, and winning against somebody else. And, God bless the tours and the pros, but that's such a small piece of this sport that as an organization, we really needed to be thinking about our members and the millions of people that play this game. We're the governing body. Let us help everybody.
You're tuned in now to This Pickleball Life. I'm K-Dubs and Jilly B is my wife. She's the pro and I've got the filler. She's sweet to me, but on the court she's a killer. Unadulterated and efficiently bringing you the best and worst things in PB. Tell your friends and stay for another. And no one loves us more than your mother. One thing's for sure, one hit and you're addicted. Grab a pile, grab a court, don't resist it. So click subscribe, let's go, let's get cracking. Theme song done, let's go, let's get laughing. This Pickleball Life.
All right, pod listeners, we have a very special guest today. Mike Nealy has been the CEO of USAP for just over a year now. Prior to that, he was the executive director / CEO of the Arizona Sports Foundation, which operates VRBO Fiesta Bowl. Mike has been credited with restoring the Fiesta Bowl's status as one of the premier bowl games in the U.S. Not only that, but he has 12 years of experience in the NHL, most recently having served as president, COO, and you're going to have to explain this one to us, Mike, the alternate governor.
What is that, Mike?
Of the Phoenix Coyotes. And
yeah, usually they're
welcome to the pod. Yeah,
I'll let you finish. I think that no, in the sports like that, the owners, there's a governing body, right? That's like the NHL's governing body, and each owner has a representative. Usually, it's the owner. And there's also an alternative if the owner can't be there. That's a rough.
Got it. Okay, you're like third in line to the throne.
Yeah. That sounds pretty good.
And
sure.
Personally, Mike has coached football for over a decade. He has several years of experience as a basketball referee. Mike, you're an avid runner. You've competed in 11 marathons, including Boston and New York. I am exhausted listening to your bio. How impressive is that?
Some of those things go back a few years. I think my marathon days are long gone, but there was a time.
We are super excited to have you on the pod, Mike. Obviously, so much going on in the world of pickleball, as always. Tell us how this past, year and a couple months has been for you at USA Pickleball, some of the changes you've helped spearhead, and tell us how you got on this wild ride called pickleball.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the question is what hasn't changed in the last year, right? I mean, in this game of pickleball, and that we all are, the ecosystem that we're in, but more specifically to USA Pickleball, of course, I'll give credit to the board of directors. I think they saw so much change happening, and they know that enhancements needed to happen. Part of our organization, they made a search, and I made the cut, so I was very excited about that. I tell you, it was an interesting one. When I first got a call about it, I played pickleball. I was, I wouldn't say I was an avid player, but I played often, I would say. And I got a call, and I said, well, that's kind of interesting, kind of going from, football and hockey to, but this is, I know this sport is growing. I looked into it more and more. The more I looked into it, the more time went by, I got really excited about this opportunity. So it wasn't a hard sell, and it turned over to, me really wanting the job, and it ended up
Do you still want the job?
Last June. Oh yeah. There's just like there are days, right? That's it's the way the world is, and when something's changing and happening so fast, and you have the players that are involved with this, at the level that they are involved, and the investments that people are. There's a lot that happens, and it's not all good. You can't lie about that, but you focus on doing what you can, right, and focus on what you can
for sure. And we're gonna
do. So. But yeah, the early, the first year here has been certainly crazy. I'll say, not exclusively, but a lot of time had to be spent inside the organization. The enhancements. There was just systems and efficiencies and the blocking and tackling of a normal business that you need. We outgrew the systems here pretty quickly, and that needed to happen. And then from the staff standpoint too, God bless the volunteers, and and we still are a heavy volunteer organization, with our ambassadors, our boards of volunteers, and a lot of other volunteers that help us out in many ways. But we needed to bring in more seasoned and more people to be able to accomplish what needed to get accomplished if we were going to be successful.
We're going to get into all of the details of that first in a minute. But first, I do want to ask you. You have a little bit, I'm hearing, of an accent of kind of a Great White North Minnesota thing going on. Were you a huge hockey player growing up, and is that how you got into hockey?
Yeah, that's a good question, and you nailed it on the Minnesota. I don't know if you looked up in my bio or something, but yeah, I spent 18 years down here in Arizona, but we moved down here for hockey when I came from the Minnesota Wild, and then
so the real question is, have you played ice pickleball? Have you seen that?
That I didn't even know. I've not even seen that. No, I tell you, I'm going to tell my son.
Next
my son's
time
a hockey
Meredith
guy
needs to give you a PR stunt. That is top of the list. Mike Nealy on skates with a paddle. Let's go.
Now, I can get on skates and I can skate, but to your previous question, somehow I grew up in Minnesota and I played basketball and football and did not actually play. I mean, I played some hockey, but very little. I am not a hockey player, and I certainly wasn't hired in the hockey world to play
Dreams
hockey.
Dashed.
That's for sure. Yeah. I lived through my son. He's the hockey guy now, so. Yeah.
So, Mike, you've mentioned a few changes over the past year. Tell us about those changes, and then high level, tell our audience, how many employees does USA Pickleball have? How many members are you at right now? How many volunteers, ambassadors? Give us some numbers.
Sure. By the numbers, yeah. Let's start with our ambassadors, our volunteers. We're over, the exact number, 2,100 and some. I mean, there's over 2,000 ambassadors, and when I learned that, I mean, I was thrilled to believe that we had that many supporters of this organization in this game. And I assume that you guys have ran across and have worked with some of our ambassadors. They're everywhere.
Very good. And so obviously we see a lot of the staff during previous nationals, but what else is an ambassador that is a role as their role?
Yeah, well, yeah, the events and stuff there, but they're out there day to day in all where the courts are, where the clubs are. They're recruiting people to play. They're helping, they're organizing in different areas, pickleball play, but they're really a resource. And then we also lean on them for communication purposes and making sure that if we can help, communicate our needs out to the pickleball community. And I'll tell you one thing, 2,000 great individuals out there. I think we've, I'll speak from the organization myself, underappreciated and underutilized them, because to have 2,000 ambassadors is amazing. And, I'm really looking at, maybe we'll get into this more, but I'm really looking to enhance what we can do, with them and for them, because I think they're an important part of this organization and a very unique part of this organization.
Absolutely, yeah, it's grassroots up, right?
But yeah, absolutely. And then on the employee side, yeah, we enhanced and have grown our staff. We're in about the 34 full-time people range,
and what was it
some
when
major
you joined?
Positions that were very. I think we might have been in the low 20s, and I think so. There's been some substantial change, but also different types of jobs as well. I mean, there's been some enhancements, and we've had some turnover and filled them with different people with different experiences. I mean, some key positions though too. The head of finance, HR really wasn't even an HR function here. Almost prior to me coming, CMO is new. Charities, I think we'll talk about that. I hope a little bit. I'd love to brag about what we're doing there. But a director of our charity and community is new. Tom Tadler, our managing director of officials, VP of operations, and Steve Wong. Just recently, a new VP of memberships, so we can help focus on that more. And then operations, we're doing our own events now, and we brought in a VP of operations. So those are some key positions. And so just again, as some additional ones
for our listeners, prior to this year, every USAP event was actually run by the APP or another organization, and now you're running it completely independently? Some of the time?
Yes, to most of that. Yes, I mean, we're not going to become an event company, but I think it was important, certainly for the nationals and some of the key events and the golden tickets that feed nationals. It was important for for me, and I think for the organization, to control those, the branding, the experience by the participants. I think it was very. And you mentioned, I came from the Fiesta Bowl. That is a major event, and we did two major football events, games, and parade. It was an event company, so I was used to doing events, and I brought some people over that really knew what they were doing. For us to control some of our events was key.
And how many members do you currently serve?
We're pushing 80,000. I think we're in the 78,000 members, which is pretty admirable too. I mean, that it's amazing. I think that speaks to the growth of the game. And that's another area where, as an organization, I wanted to do more and do a better job of really being a membership organization and working with and delivering value to our members, because that's a big part of who we are.
What's the growth like on that number year over year?
Oh boy, it grew crazily for many years. It's leveled out more now, and then I think if we want to jump into some membership stuff, I can talk a little bit more details. But we're doing some different things and just launched. And launching this week, and in the week and two, you will see a lot of stuff out there about what we're doing with our
On
membership.
The topic of membership numbers, I always think it's interesting because governing bodies have a tendency to kind of pat themselves on the back and say, like, oh, we're at 78,000 members. Well, if there's 20 million players in America, right, that's kind of a low percentage of penetration. USTA does the exact same thing, by the way. It's not just USA Pickleball or you, Mike. They go, we have 500,000 members. And that was a couple of years ago. Maybe they're a little bit more now. But there's 20 million tennis players in America. So you look at a company like Duper that came on the scene 2.5-3 years ago, barely, and they're at 500,000 members already. So I always think that's kind of interesting. But how many pickleball players do you think there are in America? I've heard 50 million, 20 million, 8 million.
SFIA's study obviously is talking in the 14 million range, and others are saying 30. I would like to think and expect it's probably in the 30 range.
Yeah.
But how do you define that? I mean, people that have picked up a paddle have been exposed to it. How many are playing consistently? But we know that it's a lot, and we know it's growing. And to your point, as an organization and NGBs, governing bodies, I went to there's an association of governing bodies that I went to the meeting last year. I'm pretty new. This was last summer, and I show up to it, and I don't know. Truly, we had 75,000 members maybe at the time, and everybody there, all they wanted to do was talk about pickleball, and they couldn't believe we had 75,000 members. And there's some of these sports that have been around for years and years and years, and they had 15,000, 10,000, 20,000 members. So and tennis obviously has a lot, but that I look at that as such an opportunity. But we need to earn that. And the question to be asked, why should you be a member? And I think the reason for that in the past is different, and I'm hoping it's going to be a lot different than.
So why should someone be a member right now?
Well, there's going to be a lot of value attached to it, because I think what we did, we went out and we asked members, okay, what do you want? What are you missing? And I'll say the biggest reason to being a member probably prior was to play in a sanctioned event. You were required to, and that was a big piece of it. Now. They had some discounts and with our partners and some other pieces of traditional things that are an NGB membership basis. But we took a look and we asked them, okay, what do you want? And they wanted the value for sure. They wanted information, how to play better, and content that was unique. That was very important to them. They wanted a better rating system. that was pretty high on their list, so I have to say that. Which who doesn't? I'm being involved in this position. I don't know anybody that's happy with.
We
their
always
rating.
used to say if half the people think their rating's too high and half the people think their rating's too low, you got it right.
There you go. Or I would love to get the parameters a little bit tighter and hope that we do one day. But anyways, but with the members now, we're rolling out now. There's actually going to be a couple of tiers memberships. We are focusing a lot more on the recreation, so there's going to be a recreational tier membership that's going to be at a lower level, financial commitment, but still allow you to get a lot of content, a lot of access to discounts and stuff, credits. Let me speak to the main champion membership, which is current membership, which everybody will be rolled into that, and when you renew, you would renew into the new membership. But for that, first of all, we used to give them a gift. I think you get a bag tag, and we mailed it to you. And I don't think it was anything super special, but it was nice. but we certainly upgrade the bag tag. But the first thing you do as a member is you can pick from a group of gift options. And that's a $40 value right there. So right off the bat, you're going to get, and then that could be including, that's merchandise and things like that you have access to. There's also a $20 credit, not a discount, a $20 credit that Pickleball Superstore. Everybody from Pickleball, you need stuff, right? It's pretty easy to spend $20 at a store, but that's a flat out credit. So now you're in the $60 range of flat out just value credit. There's 10% discount, life discount in buying things as well. Access to courts, Show Your Love, the pickleball the program that allows people to have you get 2 hours of free rental at courts around the country. Of course, that's probably $80, $100 right there. So but part of that's what I'm trying to say without getting more detail.
And is the rate
value,
currently
right?
$35? What does this membership cost right now?
The rate is currently $35. The rate will be $60.
Yeah, I noticed on the
Effective
website
when?
it's paused, right?
Yeah, I think that will be coming out here this week or something. I might have scooped some of our communication here, so I'm not sure when this is going to be airing, but it's going to be out there. But part of it wasn't just because listen. I mean, some of the feedback, and I expect some of the feedback is, wait a minute, it was $35 and now it's going to be $60. I mean, that's a huge increase. I think the value is going to speak for itself, and we've tested this with many people actually, as far as, okay, here's what we're doing, here's the why, what do you think? And the feedback has been positive as far as, okay, we're talking about a lot of value here. I understand that. The other part of it is you're investing in the governing body, right? And let's look down the road here, Olympics and things that a governing body should be a big part of, and growing the sport. We're, as a nonprofit, and what we are, our mission is to grow this sport, and so supporting us in doing that is another, hopefully, is something when you're a member, you feel good about you're supporting an organization that, we're not for profit. This can't be at somebody's individual gain. We're here to grow this sport, and really what we want to do is this goes back to my days back in the Fiesta Bowl. We were a nonprofit there too. You want to make as much money as possible the right way, but what do you do with your money? Once we have a little bit of savings and, we want a safety net in the bank, which we have, after that, plow it back into growing the sport. That's what, reinvest in the sport. That's what's going to be important. And that's the message that we want to be.
So talk to us about how you guys make money. What are the different buckets? Which bucket represents what percentage of the revenue?
Yeah. Well, it's probably pretty traditional to a normal business. And maybe, I think, we are a nonprofit. I've mentioned that, and I think that confuses some people. Like, well, nonprofit, you think of, I don't know, the Red Cross or somebody where, basically they rely on donations. Please give me money and I'll do good with your money. And, and that's really how they raise funds. Why we'll take donations, sure, and we can, as a nonprofit, but we operate really like a business. So yeah, the membership is a good portion of it. I'd say that's in the 20 to 25% of our revenue. And by the way, we're shifting where we were and what's going forward here. Sponsorships and events. Like you mentioned, we didn't run our own events. We didn't control our events. You take some risk on when you're doing that, and it's a lot of work, but there's also revenue involved in that. So between that and then you have sponsors that you can sponsor those events and things, that's a decent bucket as well. That's probably going to be in the 30 to 40% of our revenue base. And then you have the equipment testing. That's a decent amount of revenue, but that is a high cost item. That there's a lot of investment that needs to go into that, but that there is revenue in that as well, and that's probably maybe 15, 20%. That starts rounding up, and there's some other miscellaneous things, but
no, it does. I mean, 78,000 times. Don't worry, we people confuse us all the time. You could say like that blonde girl, you over there,
Crecillian,
Yeah. I've been called way worse, Mike. Don't worry about it. So 78,000 times 60 alone is $4,680,000. So, I mean, seems like it's a pretty healthy business if you're saying that's about 25% or one of your four key buckets. And so then when it comes to sponsors and partners, you talked about that being a bucket. You guys have an official ball, the Franklin X40, but you also approve balls. You have an official footwear sponsor, Skechers. You have one paddle company that runs ads on the homepage of your website, which is the FS Tour by Franklin. you have great partners. Is there any conflict of interest in your mind with approving balls and then having an official ball? Or how do you think about that?
There's not in our current situation, but I think you bringing it up, is there a perception of that? I hope there is not. I mean, in the normal course of business, very common to have sponsors, and there's a line, of course, when decisions get made. One of the things I didn't talk about when we were saying all the changes with the organization, my focus internally, and there's going to be a point to this. I hope I'm not rambling too much, but I spent a lot of time, on the culture side. There was a good culture here. There was good people and stuff, but I wanted to make sure, number one, through goals and a whole bunch of them, focusing us on the right things and controlling what we can control. But how do we do that? That was very important to me. And that was creating, from a culture standpoint, the principles and values. And we talked about it openly within the organization. How do we want to act as an organization? Those principles and values. And we came up with a list of things, Now, I'll be the first one to say, actions are more important than words, but I support the actions. I encourage the right actions. And the number one on that whole list is integrity. And I've said it, and I'll say it many times internally, and I hope it gets repeated internally. Make decisions based on integrity. Yeah, that's critical. Now, other things there's accountability and following the golden rule is one of them, being financially responsible. I come from a CFO background initially, so I'm pretty heavily financially minded, but there's a lot of things that are on there, but also it's about being appreciative. And then one of the last thing in there is have fun. This is pickleball. I mean, we don't want to take ourselves too seriously, because I'm probably I find myself, I probably fall in that trap. I take myself a little bit too seriously sometimes, and I'm kind of a driver. But you got to have some fun. God, this is
serious
pickleball.
Fun, I mean, geez,
right? Yeah. I mean, but it is. To that, people don't always understand. Back when I was in the sports world too, everybody think when you're in sports, you hang around and you just talk sports and watch TV, and I don't know, hang out with the athletes. No, it's a business. It's just like any other business, and it's a lot of work. But focusing the organization. But I think what is important, and I think hopefully answers maybe your question, is integrity is not negotiable. And we're all human and we're not perfect, but integrity comes first. You lose your integrity, and you
that's
don't
the
get
Minnesota
that back.
in you. And I really do appreciate, and we read on the pod, I don't know if you watched the pod after Nationals, your response was very, correct me if you feel differently, mea culpa. Like we want to do better. We stand for better than what happened in Dallas, and your actions to separate from the PPA and do it differently here this year in Phoenix obviously speaks to what you were talking about.
I just wanted to add one thing, Kristin. I totally agree. We didn't know who Mike was, still learning about Mike. But when we read that response, I looked at you and I said, I think this guy's going to make it. I really thought this was the perfect, appropriate, integrity-laden response to Nationals. So just wanted you to know that.
Well, I appreciate you recognizing that. And it's it's easy to have integrity when there's easy decisions and things going your way. But there's and we I think I've been tested a couple of times. The good thing is, I think my background prior to here, I got tested a few times, right? I think I was in some pretty tough situations, and that kind of stuff makes you experienced, and it makes you a better person generally. So you try to learn from everything, right? And I'm old enough to have made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot.
And just briefly, while we're on the topic of Nationals, this year it will be in November in Phoenix at Bellbank Park, or whatever other people call it. I feel like that location has like 12 names, but that's
Arizona Athletic Grounds would be the correct one.
Something,
so, yes,
something
in Mesa.
to look forward to. And the qualifying is still going through either APP events or UTR sports events, correct?
Right. And we're excited. I mean, that's going to be a great event. The biggest focus and probably, referenced from last year is, the experience is critical, but experience for everybody. And yep, that comes right down to having water available, bathrooms available, all the things that were, pointed out. But we want the people to have a great experience from the minute that they're pulling in and parking to when they're checking in to the in between matches, everything. I mean, it's we're hyper focused on that, and it's critical.
Mike, I'd love to talk governance in general. Recently, we had the president of the UPA, Jason Aspis, on our podcast. He talked a lot about governing bodies, how it's totally normal in many pro sports to have multiple governing bodies. Do you agree with that?
I didn't hear him say that. Multiple governing bodies in pro sports. Well, maybe how does he define governing body? Because, like in pro sports, you're going to have, a board of directors or the NHL, the league office, if you will, at professional teams, and there's governing bodies below it. But really, there can only be one. If you're talking Olympics and national governing body as recognized by the USOPC and the IOC, there can only be one. So I don't know definitional wise, but if he's talking about what they've announced. Let me
ask the question differently. Who has given USA Pickleball the authority to be the governing body? Does a governing body need authority granted, and by who?
Yeah. Ultimately, yes, there is the body, and for the USOPC would recognize the United States governing body. We are not officially the governing body as recognized, because right now they're just not Olympic sport. I mean, it's a whole host of this. You probably do a whole podcast on this, and there's a lot of detail that probably I couldn't even fill in. But the international organization, it really starts with that, and then federations. You need one federation, then that would recognize governing bodies, and at the country level. So
basically what you're saying is it's the international body that would decide which of any country's bodies becomes that official. So until there is one international body, there's no one there to truly name a national body.
That's fair to say that.
Okay.
Yes. And right now we have 3 international governing bodies claiming.
Walk us through what happened there. The last I had checked in, WPF, World Pickleball Federation, and the IPF, the International Pickleball Federation, and USA Pickleball were, I thought, very cozy, and were working together to solidify an international singular solution. And then 2 weeks ago, I learned that's kind of blown up. Can you walk us through this a little bit?
Yeah, well, and I wouldn't say it's blown up. I think they're even today, there's conversations that are going on. I'm aware of that. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think all 3 groups agree that there should be one. Mm-hmm. And all 3 groups, I would say, agree of where it needs to be, at the end point of it. I think that the disagreement is how we get there, and maybe how fast we get there. I'm kind of simplifying it a lot. And I'll say this as an example, and one of the things that are sensitive to us, ultimately when pickleball becomes an international sport and is on the Olympic stage, and you have that international entities, that is going to govern this sport internationally. So then, so from a
that'll be your top down with the rules.
We can have our own rules and things like that, but they really can usurp what wants to happen internationally. So our concern, I say USAP's concern, is moving too fast, and you're getting to a point where it's a democratic process, right? So every country that's going to be participating at some level should have a vote, and we agree with that. But where we don't agree is how fast should everybody have the same vote? And my example of that would be between the United States and probably Canada. That's 95% of the people playing pickleball. And we invented pickleball. I mean, if we jump tomorrow to one country, one vote in a federation, you could have some country that has 100 pickleball players team up with a few other countries that have a few hundred pickleball players and make rule changes.
Yeah, we hear Bermuda's growing really fast in the pickleball community.
There's a ton of growth that's out there. But, I think, I'm simplifying a little bit, and there's some things that you could put in place for that. But the integrity of this game, we wanted to make sure that in the short term, you don't wake up and a bunch of countries decided to, let's play this on a badminton court because we have more badminton courts in our country. We're going to do that. Or let's change the size of the ball. Let's do, we're trying to keep the general pieces of this game, but eventually it will be certainly a democratic process. And I hope, I think there's room to get together. Those federations, I think there is still room to come together. We all want that to happen, but that you have things that make it a little bit tougher sometimes, but I'm still hopeful.
Well, I think the dimensions of a pickleball court are the exact same as a badminton court, which is one reason why I talk about the potential growth and China and Southeast Asia being so huge for pickleball.
I think we're going to have to fact check you there, Jill. I can't do the specifics, but I'm pretty sure that it is not the same.
It's close, but I think
it's close.
Like
it is close. It is close.
On one, on like, the kitchen line's a little different, whatever they use that for in badminton.
Fact check me.
They do have little alleys, I think. But
yeah, no, I meant the overall dimensions though. But yeah, no, I know there's an alley and obviously no kitchen line.
Right.
So Mike, if I'm understanding you correctly, I mean, there's essentially a challenge to your status as the governing body, which is the UPAA. And I want to know a little bit more. Did they ever talk to you about collaborating before they went off and started the UPAA?
Well, I'd say we were collaborating in many ways. And my interest was certainly to collaborate because I think, my message is, we're the governing body. Let us help everybody. It's a competitive world. If you're talking about the PPA, APP, they're competitors and they don't necessarily want to support their competitor. I don't know if I'm a threat, if I'm viewed that way, but, my job, and I say my job, ours as a team in the USA Pickleball is to grow this sport and rise the tide, right, for everybody. If we can get more people playing and more fans, that's going to feed all the way up into the professional ranks. So, I had a lot of conversations with Howard, and I think it kind of came down to sometimes is control as well too. As an independent organization, for me it was very important that we stayed neutral and non-exclusive as much as possible, and that wasn't consistent, I think, with what Connor was asking for. So I think that probably was some of the difference, and I was aware that was a possibility, and I would say that was even a threat would be too strong of a word, but hey, if you don't do it the way we want to do things, then we're going to do it ourselves. And I just that's if you want to do it a certain way, but it goes back to the way that I feel is the right way to do it was important, and we had to stick to that.
Mm-hmm. One key reason they cited for starting the UPAA was paddle testing. How do you feel USA Pickleball has done with paddle testing?
Yeah, that's gotten a lot of news lately, and I would say, as I look into it now, I don't come from a technology in a testing world, but as I've inquired about the history and where we've come from and what we're doing, I'm pretty impressed, and I think we do a great job with it. I think what happened more recently, and I say more recently, like probably even last fall, where a lot of new paddles were coming out, pushing the boundaries of power and things like that. And, I think our testing, is as good as it was, started to fall a little bit short of being able to catch everything appropriately. And maybe the better way to put it is some of the testing, that we were doing was indirect testing.
Right.
So you're testing for something that should be a proxy for, if you test this should.
It's like the causation correlation thing.
And come off of that. So, but we are, and we have been, and that's where it's a little bit disappointing because we're driving more towards direct testing. That's what's important. How fast is that ball coming off the paddle? We had a group of manufacturers to our third-party manufacturer in, I think it was early May, and shared with them. There's been some development that's been going on, and maybe this is when I ask you your question, getting into a better situation of how can we test directly how that paddle's coming off. So we shared with the manufacturers, and we're ready to go. I'll call it Q3, but we're almost ready to go to launch new ways of testing, and that is going to be that it's called PB core, that coefficient of restitution, where we're actually going to be testing a ball projected at a paddle. How fast is that coming off that paddle? And then coming up with the standards, not by ourselves, but then coming up with the standards with the input from people on what those standards should be, but actually testing the directly for that. We also are doing scanning where we'll actually see the contours of the face paddle versus testing a needle across it, which is an indirect test, and saying here's how much it
peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys, exactly, but with a scan. There's also then a spin test, a direct spin test that we're developing, and that might hit Q3 as well. So it's an ongoing process for sure. I think some of the paddle manufacturers, got ahead of us. It's just a competitive world, and if they can do something that's going to be a competitive advantage, it can happen, and there's 1,800 paddle manufacturers out there. I'm not sure if there's that many manufacturing companies, but actual companies that are have paddles that are out there. It's a lot. But the design boundaries, that's probably from a competitive standpoint. Some of the manufacturers, they want to push the design boundaries, and that's for us to try to maintain on top of it. But I will speak. I think, and I don't think there was any lack of it before. But I'll go back to the integrity side of it.
No, totally. And we've talked about it often. Like you said, the test. The manufacturers know what the test is, so they are absolutely going to design around that test, which, I know we can't get into the nitty-gritty details of any ongoing lawsuits you guys have, but it's pretty public knowledge that, the Gen 3 is now kind of in this mysterious in-between ground where they thought what they gave you was approved and they moved to market, and paddle manufacturers are therefore going to be concerned in the future that they know what they're going to be tested on and that's going to hold, so that they don't get stuck, holding huge sums of product in their hands. So how are you going to roll out these new tests while somehow still maintaining the prior approvals? Yeah,
absolutely. And you're, I'll try to, we have some legal things going, so I'm limited on what I can say, but I think you mentioned it. We have, and will continue to share with the manufacturers, this is how we're going to test. We're not trying to trick anybody. This is how, now, can you design something around a test? Yep. Well, if you're testing indirectly, you can, but eventually when we're going to be implementing in Q3 these other testing parameters, it's going to be harder to work around that. Maybe I'll share, the process. Maybe I don't think everybody understands. I think somebody says, how does something get approved in the first place? And here's where hopefully I'm not at too much risk here. In the Yola situation, somebody submits a paddle, and we have our testing parameters, and they're familiar with them. We test the paddles. They sent us a couple of paddles. They're TA 15, whatever, and we tested them. They were approved. Those particular paddles never went to market. Okay. There's another process in the testing where you can have a similarity paddle. And that's important, because a lot of paddle manufacturers have multiple runs of a certain particular type of paddle. To pass for a similarity paddle, there's only two things you can change. I think the size of it and the graphics. So basically you can't change anything except for maybe how it looks, right? And we rely on basically an affidavit or assertions from a manufacturer says, we haven't changed anything. We trust that. Okay, we approve these paddles. You're saying these are similarity, didn't change anything. Great, it's approved. And that's what happened with Yola Gen 3. And now, which they've noted in their own filing there, they notified us later on, said, whoops, the stuff that we sent you for similarity wasn't the right paddles. Well, they're right immediately. That means we have paddles on the market with our sticker on them that were not certified. We didn't have a choice. I mean, if you want to go back to integrity, well, what if I would have said, what, let's give them a pass on this one. That's we rules are rule, right? I mean, these were immediately they were not certified. Now, they submitted subsequent paddles. Those also just didn't fail. Those also failed. So that's kind of where we're at with that. I probably should just stop there, but and it's unfortunately it's a legal process, and I feel very comfortable in our position with this one.
Yeah, there's nothing you said that wasn't in the claim already.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, don't stop, keep going.
Yeah, lawyers are probably already rolling around and racing. I like to share information. That's internally. I probably default sometimes in sharing too much, but I just believe that goes like internally with financials. And I try to tell people, that can bite you sometimes. But if you're honest about things, and people like to feel in the know, and unfortunately, in these situations and in the public, and there's been rumors, and I see. I don't read the blog stuff too much, but I'm aware of, and we do monitor some of this stuff. It's frustrating when you hear things that people, I understand it's out of just lack of information, and we can't always say.
Not everyone's going to read the 50-page claim, which
True. And by the way, when you make a claim like that, you can write in there anything you want.
Anything you want. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Like Yola asserts that the two paddles that passed, they manufactured paddles that looked and felt and performed just like the two original paddles that passed in September, not the similarity paddles in November. That's their assertion.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
And if the process rolls out, there's the filing, we will reply. This will be a long process, but I'll just say I feel very comfortable in our position and that we did things right. We did things with integrity, and we will continue to do that.
Well, that means a lot, and obviously we wish the best for the pickleball community. I definitely understand the frustration as a consumer on buying a paddle you think is legal and then being told you can't use it, and as Yola, thinking that they knew the rules perhaps and feeling like the rules changed. But you guys, I feel that all of this is coming down, and is, like you said, in an effort to upstand the integral part of being a governing body and trying to create a level playing field for everyone. So hopefully in the long run, that's what happens.
Yeah, and that's what's important. You mentioned level playing field. We want consistency. We want a level playing field. The approval process is what it is. There is post that. We do sacred shopping. There are other ways when we become aware of things after the fact. We do have the ability to, and then we're going to enhance.
So you are currently doing secret shopping, or you're going to start doing that?
We do.
You've already been doing that for
I'd say
a
from a
year
resource standpoint,
forever?
we should be doing more. Because you can't. Obviously it's hard to secret shop the whole country
paddles
all the time. That's a lot of resources, and so sometimes we rely on feedback, and some of it's just the public starts talking about, hey, this paddle does this, sometimes that warrants us grabbing a paddle off the market and cutting into it. We don't cut into all the paddles. Again, we take a lot of times we have to take the word for the manufacturer saying this is what it's made of. They disclose it, and it's all acceptable material, and they disclose it. We found times where you cut open a paddle and there's material that wasn't disclosed. And those are the types of things that can happen. Ideally, you want to catch on the front side, and I think we're going to be doing more. We're going to invest more. It's going to cost more money for us, but we're going to invest more into the testing on the front side, because we're not trying to do any gotchas, right? We 1,800 manufacturers. The amount of paddles that are coming through, we keep up to speed on them, but it's a lot of volume, and we're just going to have to take more time and spend more time and enhance the testing and cutting into more paddles and testing post market more.
So you mentioned that these new tests are obviously going to be more costly. Is the price going to have to go up for the paddle manufacturers to get their paddles tested?
Is it $100,000?
Yeah, no, I would say it'll probably go up a little bit, because it is, our costs are going to substantially go up, so it'll go up some, but not. I don't know. I saw some of the public comments on what PPA had planned, and that's interesting. It's
allegedly.
No, we're not going to get anywhere. We wouldn't be doing that at all. No.
But yes, you're saying the cost will go up, but I
think for the manufacturers, they'll see some increase in their costing to account for the additional testing. Yeah.
Did you have any more on?
I probably just said something else publicly that you guys are scooping.
Yeah, that's pretty vague.
The manufacturers are going to be on it, but anyway.
I don't think you're in trouble with that. Jill, did you have anything more on paddles, or shall we move on?
No, I was on the Dink podcast after reading the claim, and I said, if what Yola asserts is the truth, I think USA Pickleball's in a lot of trouble. And just having Mike on here to say, look, we're really confident, really comfortable in our position, I think that's really helpful, because we don't know what we don't know. We haven't seen a response.
Right. And the legal process is interesting, and the response that we can respond. And hopefully, again, if this could get understood, prior to having to go all the way out in the whole legal process. But again, I feel very strong in our position with this, and I'll go back to the integrity side. We need to stick to what we believe in, and we did it right.
Well, and I do have one kind of general question about paddle testing. We talk about improving the methods, but do you guys have like a very defined kind of version of what a pickleball paddle should be able to do? Like, do you have ongoing discussions as a board
question.
with how fast is too fast and how spinny is too spinny? And to me, I think a big part of what makes pickleball so explosive is the fact that between the wiffle ball and the lack of power in a paddle, that no matter how hard someone hits it at you, you still have a chance of getting the ball back. Is that something that I made up in my own head, or is that something that the USAP actually believes in as a core principle for what makes pickleball so magical?
Yeah, well, I think a standard, and as we get to these direct tests, and okay, what is going to be, I think to your question, what is going to be too fast? What is that reflection off that paddle, the amount? That we don't have that answer yet, and that's not going to be something that we do in a vacuum. That's something that from even a national standards group, we're going to solicit and from players. What do you want to hear from players? We want to hear from manufacturers. We want to hear from the national standards, because that standard needs to be set appropriately. And I don't have the answer for that. I'm curious, what you guys think about, to answer your own question. I don't know how you guys feel about, has a game gotten too fast? Is there an issue? Should it be more or less managed?
I think MLP nailed it when they started actually aggregating data and doing analyses last March in MLP Daytona. And what they kind of found was this number of 50 for deflection, which at the time was like a Selkirk 002 paddle, was right about the limit. And I think that was right. And I think lowering it to 42, which the PPA did kind of on the fly, again at a tournament in Florida about 6 months later.
Ironically,
Kristin?
it was at the same venue, but
Same venue.
That was the first event that they brought PPL in. They said, okay, we'll bring you in, but we're changing the rules. And I appreciated the original rule did not just come as a pie in the sky, one man's opinion on which paddle was like, okay, that's good and that's not. It was literally a mathematical standard deviation test. So they took all of the paddles in the field and they found what was reasonably going to encapsulate most of the paddles and eliminate the outliers by an actual somewhat mathematical formula, not just some person's idea of what's fair.
Data. We will use data and factual stuff, when we come to a number. It won't be something that we will pick for sure.
Mike, I want to hear all about Pickleball Serves. I do have one last question for you before we get to that. And this is my new favorite question that I'm going to ask all of our guests. I just asked Tom Webb this yesterday. There appears to be this bifurcation in the sport occurring where on one side of the battle lines, you have USA Pickleball, APP, and UTR Sports. And on the other side, you have UPA, which is comprised of MLP and PPA. And then you also have DUPR, which is their rating system. So you have this total and utter bifurcation with really serious players on both sides. Is there room for everyone? Tell us what 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road should look like, what you think it will look like.
Well, there's room. There's room. I mean, ideally, dissension or division is not good in any sport. And, I think we're talking about, but first of all, I'll back up. I want to give credit to the Kens of the world that started the professional side, and then the PPA came along. That and then MLP following that brought a lot of light to this game. And as we all know, you get exposed to this game, it's going to grow the game. So I think, a lot of credit to the tours in the league to bring a lot of attention to this. You bring in a lot of attention, you bring in a lot of money, you got egos, you're going to have, probably have some issues, and that's kind of what we're facing here.
There's no ego in pro pickleball, Mike. What are you talking about?
Well, the tough part for me has just been trying to stay as neutral as possible, but I think when you have competitive forces out there, that they have interest, they have personal financial interest in winning, and winning against somebody else, and they would prefer USAP to be exclusive and help them solely. I mean, and those are the conversations I literally have had. It's like, well, no, we want you to work with us. You can't work with them, and I can't and shouldn't do that. But please accept us as the governing body that can raise this whole sport. And by the way, the recreational side of this. I mean, we're talking about millions of people playing. I mean, how many pro players are there? A couple hundred. Maybe, I don't know. I don't even know the total number of pros. And then how many people are even playing competitively in tournaments? mean, that leaves the millions and millions of people that are out there that I represent as well. That's a big part of, and that was a focus too that God bless the tours and the pros, but that's such a small piece of this sport that as an organization, we really needed to be thinking about our members and the millions of people that play this game, and then trying to grow this game and giving it. And I think maybe that's a good transition into the Pickleball Serves.
Yeah, tell us about Pickleball Serves. I've heard some really cool things.
Yeah, another early on, very important item that was on the list. And we are a nonprofit, and we were doing things, and we were giving away equipment and such, but not to a large extent. And some of that was resources. I think as an organization, we didn't have all the resources for it. Back to we had a bunch of volunteers, not a large group of staff. So we really, by taking a lot of efforts in-house, growing our revenue. Now we have more resources, people and financial resources. What do we want to do with that? A big piece of that was that community and the charitable arm of we are a charity, but that charitable arm and the Pickleball Serves, that was launched, hired a director of community relations to help drive that. And it's all about getting out in the community. I think in a short amount of time that we've launched this, we've had at least 9, maybe 10 events where we brought kids and families together, exposed them to the game. And we're talking about anywhere from 30 people to we had over 100 at one event. These are kids from schools come in to get exposed to the game. Most of them, either the organization or the individuals, kids themselves, walk away with a paddle. That's the Franklin relationship that we have. They donate these paddles to these kids. So now we have 100 more kids walking home with paddles to mom and dad,
nice.
So they get exposed or playing the game. But and that's a free thing. That's something that we're bringing forward. That was really important, and we're going to be doing more and more of that. And this gets back to, I want to run this business as efficiently and as well as possible so I can make as much money as possible. Then what do we do with that money? That's what's going to get poured back into the Pickleball Serves type of community outreaches and the things, growing this sport. So that's where I appreciate it. I think some of the organizations out there recognize our role and our sport and our role. I think some look at us as a competitor and want to compete against it. Boy, let me just help you. Let us do what we do and what our job is to do. And, to a governing body, I'm not sure why anybody else would want to be a governing body. This is not a huge money-making deal. It's a lot of work, but God bless them if they want to, do some other things. And maybe get back to the definition of governing body. Maybe Jason was talking about something else, but what we do well, and we're going to continue to do that. And I'm excited about it. And the community piece is huge part of our organization and will be.
I couldn't agree more. The joy of doing these events, especially with children. I have to also give credit to UPA. They had a really special, just really cool event at Atlanta a couple months back with kids in wheelchairs, kids with disabilities. And it's so beautiful to see these kids and their eyes lighting up and playing pickleball. And it was a huge event. I think they had over 50 kids there. So same thing. Wow. I'm happy to see all of the different bodies, regardless of the battle lines that may or may not be drawn, giving back to the community. Yeah. So that's really cool.
This is a special game. I mean, we haven't really talked about, but I think when you talk to people that are in pickleball, and I'm preaching to the choir now, but it doesn't take too long when you start talking to people that are playing this game and the stories you hear. I mean, life-changing type of stories from emotional things to physical. I mean, it is amazing. And kids get attracted to this, and it's cool. I have a 19-year-old son, and it's cool to play pickleball. I mean, that's wasn't that long ago.
Not just for old people anymore.
Yeah, so
apparently it's like the dating scene for 18 and up.
Probably that wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad. We need more pickleball courts, right? That's one of the things that we're also the facility side. That's another service that we want to provide, is helping them do it right, but getting more courts out there. We want that as well.
Well, we could talk for another hour on that topic, but I know we are wrapping up our time with you. I did want to say, for the record, badminton, the courts are exactly the same on the outside edges, right? So the outer lines of a pickleball court and a badminton court are identical, 20 feet wide, 44 feet long. The difference is badminton has a short serve line that looks like a kitchen, and it is 6.5 feet instead of 7 feet from the net. So it is really close, but
Oh,
when you play on a badminton court, you're like, why is this a little easier when I'm at the net? That's why.
Maybe we should only play on badminton courts, Mike. There's a thought for you to take. There's a thought for you to take to the board.
Oh my goodness!
All part of the discussion. Maybe 6.5 is the number.
No, Mike, you've been incredibly gracious. I understand what Tom Webb meant yesterday when he said he really believes in the leadership at USA Pickleball. It seems like there's been a really productive number of changes that you have implemented, and we are so grateful for your time today. Thank you.
I appreciate you letting me tell my story and tell you it's going to be the team. I have built a great team here, so I'm smart enough. Like I said, I've been doing this a long enough time. Get the right people on the bus here and let them do what they do. And I got a great team.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mike.
Will you be at any tournaments that we will see you in the next few months?
Well, I'm gonna see. I'll get out to California here, Newport, briefly this week, but then I'll be scattered around. I'm not sure. Well, hopefully we'll meet in person. Yeah.
Great.
Well, we'll see you in Newport. Yeah, hopefully.
Thanks again.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
This Pickleball Life.
Oh boy, we're gonna edit this. There's a mosquito. No, it's probably already having feasted on me. Oh no, I had it. They love me, Mike.
Jill
if there's
has
a mosquito within like 200 miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope. I don't want this edited. I want this part of the podcast.
And we'll be right back after this mosquito break.
Mosquito hunting again.
I think I got it. Oh my God, that's
Jill. We're gonna leave this on the podcast. I want edit this.
Where is? I think I missed it.